Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Richardson, and I am excited to be here today with Dr. Steve Porter. And he is one of the founders and CEOs of RiskLD. Now, RiskLD was a company that is presented on Pitch Club previously, and we are excited to have them back for our Women's Health Pitch Club extension video this week to talk about some updates. They've had a lot of exciting things going on. So welcome, Steve. We're happy to have you here. And why don't we go ahead and start with you giving a little overview of what RiskLD is, and then we'd love to dive into those exciting updates as well.
Absolutely. And thank you, Katie, and the entire AngelMD community for having us back. As Katie mentions, my name is Steve Porter. I'm a practicing obstetrician gynecologist. I'm also the CEO of RiskLD. RiskLD is a software platform that fully integrates with the inpatient electronic medical record, and it provides a combination of early warning or early alerting and clinical decision support at the point of care on labor and delivery. So the whole mission of the software, the mission of the company, is to improve perinatal outcomes, to improve outcomes for laboring moms and their babies when they are in the hospital for that inpatient episode of care at the time of labor and delivery.
That's exciting. And from what I recall, you guys actually have some pretty good data on how you're doing just that, improving those outcomes, correct?
That's exactly right. So our software is based on a series of clinical practice guidelines, essentially standardized obstetric care protocols that have been in place at a large hospital system in Northeast Ohio for the past 10 years. What that hospital system has seen is, since they introduced these standardized care protocols, they've seen a pretty dramatic 92% reduction in serious safety events for moms and babies. And they've also seen a 93% reduction in obstetric litigation costs, which for a self-insured health system is incredibly important. But of course, as physicians, we care about better outcomes for moms and babies.
For sure. I mean, that's truly amazing and very exciting. Again, being a pediatrician, I'm all about the health of the baby, but I know we got to get that mama through this important time as well. So that's very exciting.
You got it. You got it.
Well, give us some insights into what's been happening with RiskLD. I've heard there's some exciting stuff on the horizon. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So a couple of exciting updates. So our software is now an approved application in Epic's App Store, the App Orchard, which means it is available for download today by any hospital that runs on the Epic platform. And the technology that Epic uses to support its App Store is a technology called Smart on Fire. Which I don't need to get into the details of what Smart on Fire is, but what it means is that for a hospital to install our application ends up being a 3 to 6 week process of downloading and configuration, as opposed to a 6 to 12 month process of installing a brand new software at a hospital. So the process is incredibly streamlined and not overwhelming for hospital IT departments. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we have our first 2 customers on the horizon. So I should mention that the software has been running at a large system in Northeast Ohio from which we spun out, although it is not running on that Epic App Store-based Smart on Fire platform. So we are about to go live with our first 2 customers on that Epic App Store model. The first is a safety net hospital in the East Bay of San Francisco. They're called Contra Costa Regional Medical Center. I'm happy to report that we went up in their test environment last week, hot off the press, and the software is looking great. So we are tracking for an October go live and preparing to train the clinicians to start using the software. So they will be our first real client. The second client with whom we're in contracting at the moment is a large system in northern New Jersey. So they're likely to be a second. And then there's a third system outside of Baltimore that we're also in advanced discussions with. So all very exciting. That was really our goal for this year, to go live at 2 to 3 beta sites. And we are on track to do that. The last piece that I wanted to mention is we've been working very closely with the federal government to advance legislation that's going to make it easier for hospitals to adopt software platforms like ours. A little bit of history. Earlier this year, there was a sweeping package of legislation that was introduced called the Black Maternal Health Momnibus Act. Now, one of those bills is something called the Tech to Save Moms Act, Technology to Save Moms. And what that piece of legislation does, it appropriates $60 million, sets that aside for hospitals to install software solutions like ours. Now, half of that, so $30 million, goes to CMMI, which is the innovation arm of CMS. What CMMI does is they identify and support demonstration sites for novel, innovative software platforms, technology platforms like ours. Now, those technologies that are deemed to be cost-saving to the government, they then have a mandate to roll out nationally. And that's incredibly important because Medicaid, the federal government, already pays for 43% of births in the United States. So getting these demonstration sites up and running and supported by the federal government through this legislation will actually provide a platform for national scale up. So we're incredibly excited.
Wow, there's a lot of exciting things to pick apart in there. Lots of very cool stuff. Talk about, well, I'm excited about your first two, we'll say, official clients through the App Store. Talk a little bit about those two sites and what makes them most excited about bringing RiskLD into their hospital. What are they hoping to see from implementation of the software?
Sure. So our first hospital, Contra Costa Regional Medical Center, as I mentioned, they're a safety net hospital, and their labor and delivery is staffed mostly by family medicine practitioners. And they are full scope family medicine practitioners. So they are taking care of babies, they're taking care of older adults, and they're also delivering babies. They were particularly excited about the clinical decision support aspect of our software, because being that they are full scope family medicine practitioners, they might not be as up to date with the latest management guidelines for preeclampsia. The ACOG just updated its guideline for intraamniotic infection, which we used to call chorioamnionitis. So things are constantly changing. Our platform provides a mechanism for those family medicine practitioners to ensure that they are continuing to deliver evidence-based best practices to their patients. So that was the first piece. The second client, Hackensack Meridian Medical Center, is a large network in northern New Jersey. There is a maternal fetal medicine specialist who is incredibly data-driven and technology savvy, and was excited to have his system be on the cutting edge of adopting new technologies at the point of care on labor and delivery. Interestingly, on the political side, the two senators from New Jersey have been incredibly supportive of the Black Maternal Health Momnibus legislation. So Senator Cory Booker was the Senate lead on the entire package. Senator Bob Menendez introduced Tech to Save Moms as a standalone piece of legislation in March of this year. So New Jersey is just politically a very interesting state to be using technology at the front lines to improve obstetric outcomes.
Well, very exciting. Again, I want to go back to a couple of things that you've talked about. Having RiskLD in the Epic App Orchard is very exciting. So I spent some time on my medical informatics team at a large integrated health system prior to doing what I'm doing now. And I know how long those implementations can take and how many people are involved. And the Epic App Orchard seemed like it was going to be a major win for healthcare to be able to implement much faster and also have access to many more types of digital platforms, again, much more quickly. Talk a little bit about how difficult that was to get set up in the Epic App Orchard, or if it was, and then how does that relate to other EHRs? Because although Epic, I'm guessing, is the biggest, that doesn't mean then that translates to every other EHR.
Absolutely. So I have to say our experience with Epic has been phenomenal. We were assigned, when we signed up for the process, with a dedicated technical liaison who shepherded us through the process of getting our solution approved in the App Store. It took about 3 months from start to finish, but it was really the right time. When we chose to focus on that was really at the peak of the pandemic, when it was really challenging to be talking to hospitals about anything else other than COVID. So we said, okay, if hospitals are a little too busy to talk right now, we're gonna go internal and we're gonna focus on getting our application approved and ready so that when hospitals return to this area, which of course delivering babies, that's not an elective procedure that you can defer until after the pandemic, right? They keep coming. We wanted to make sure that we were ready. So we had a really great process getting through and installed in the Epic App Store. It is the vision of most other EMR vendors to stand up similar app stores that are powered by the same technology, by Smart on Fire. What we found is that when we ventured into Cerner's App Store, they weren't quite as far along in supporting applications like ours that rely on real-time data. So our solution relies on, we pull on over 130 different data feeds for every patient that's run through our system. Some of that has to do with information about the patient's past medical or past obstetric history, but a lot of it has to do with real-time data, real-time vital signs, information on fetal heart rate tracing, the most updated lab results, the medications, and when they were administered. In order to access that real-time data, not all of the other EMR app stores are equipped to support that yet, although they are making strides in that direction. But certainly, Cerner has a vision of bringing app stores to the market like this. Allscripts has an app store, Meditech has an app store. So the vision is that I think on the part of all EMR companies is that they will be able to support applications like ours. And the goal is that we want our solution to be available at any hospital that has labor and delivery. So, and I have to say that working with the hospitals has been a pleasure, because many of them have experience working with these App Store applications. And once we frame it as such, it becomes much less overwhelming when we're approaching the IT department. It's sort of like, oh, I've done one of these App Store integrations before. I get this is going to be a 1-month process and we're done.
Well, that's very exciting. And as I said, I'm sure, as you mentioned too, I'm sure the hospitals are very excited that they have that capability now, because again, it's going to help move things forward at a much quicker pace. I want to come back to the Momnibus legislation, and I have to think in my mind that this is huge for you all. Do you feel like it will lead to RiskLD essentially being implemented at every federally qualified health center, for instance? Like, these are the things that go through my mind, and I'm sure they go through your mind as well. But tell us, I mean, this could be huge, right?
Absolutely, and we're tremendously excited about it. You know, we have to stay somewhat guarded when we're talking about the strategy, because you sort of never want to be tying your fate to a single strategy, right? Certainly a single strategy that requires the federal government to deliver on something, right? Not to sort of knock the government, but you know, we view it as a strategy which is synergistic and certainly can be accretive to our core commercial strategy, which is having hospitals buy the software. But you're absolutely right that we really feel like we have the right solution at the right time. We have appalling maternal health outcomes in this country. There is now this sweeping legislation to tackle this issue. And there's a bill that talks about the role that technology will play. And the way it's written is actually very similar to how the EMR companies were able to drive EMR adoption through meaningful use. It's a very similar mechanism that if we can demonstrate that our software is cost saving, which if we know that we deliver better outcomes, we will reduce costs, there will be a mandate that every hospital providing obstetrics adopts a solution like ours. We happen to believe that we have the best solution out there, but may the best solution win. At the end of the day, it's about patients winning. So
it is. That is very exciting for patients and for you all. But I'm certainly excited to see what happens with that. So we're going to have you back again at some point so we can talk more about that. But before we go today, I have one other question for you. How can the AngelMD network support you with where you all are right now?
Wonderful. So the first is we are always looking to build out our pipeline. So as I mentioned, we have 3 hospitals, one of which is about to go live, 2 likely to follow over the next 6 months, but we are always looking to build out our pipeline, both for beta sites and for paying customers down the road. The idea is that once we have beta sites stood up and we have hospitals that we can point to where the software is demonstrating and delivering its value, we will be in a position to start negotiating with more paying customers. So starting those discussions now. Anyone in the AngelMD community that is affiliated with a hospital that has labor and delivery or risk management is interested in improving perinatal outcomes, we would love to speak with you. The second piece is we are raising a bridge round at the moment to support our beta site installations. That kicked off with a $250,000 investment from University Hospitals Ventures here in Cleveland, Ohio. We are extending that for another $750,000 that's open in that round, and there's already a term sheet to support it. It's a very simple convertible note. So anyone in the community that is part of a syndicate or is interested in investing, I would be delighted to walk through our full pitch and start the discussion.
Fantastic. Dr. Porter, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and giving us all these amazing updates for RiskLD. And as I mentioned, we're going to have you back because I want to hear how things progress.
We would love that. It's certainly been an exciting year, and I really do feel like the best is yet to come. So thank you, and to all the AngelMD community. We're thrilled to be part of this network and to be sharing our journey with you.